Okay, hey guys, and today we're going to be talking about the Walther P1. It's pretty much identical to the P38, so let's just jump into it. Right here is the holster that it came with. This is a post-war type of holster. If you look at the P38 holsters, they're a little different than this, but let's open it up and take a look at the pistol. And I will note before I forget it, it does have a spare magazine built into the holster. So let's set that aside because you're probably not here for that. Right here, if I can zoom in, is the Walther P1. And mechanically it's the exact same as the P38. But we're going to look at some of the things that differentiate it and kind of what started the need for a P38 over the Luger, and near the end of its life in the 90s and early 2000s whenever it was phased out. So let's just start up front and then we'll work our way back. Starting from the front here, we have just a normal blade sight that is dovetailed in. It's got a white dot, and that is actually like an indention with paint in it. Tapered barrel. Then we move down here to the markings. Of course, it's made by Walther, and this is post-war, so they could just put Walther on there. It didn't have to have a code. You've got P1, the model, cal 9mm. And then 1180 means it was made November of 1980. I looked it up and I think these stopped production in 92. So you can find them, all the way from the first ones in 1938 all the way up to 1992, which is some people kind of forget about these things, is they kind of stuck around for a while. I also read that they were eventually fully replaced in 2004. They'd already been started to be phased out in the late 90s, I think it said, by a pistol called the P8 in German military, but it stuck around until 2004, so that's pretty close to now, considering this is a pre-World War II design. But let's zoom back in. We've got the serial number. Well, I'm out of shot there. Serial number right there, and it's the full serial number, and then around it you'll see just different little 3 digits of the last bit of the serial number all over it, because they're German and they like doing that. Then we've got German acceptance marks all over this thing, like there's one. Pretty sure this is supposed to be one. Let's see. Yeah, that means something. I don't really know what all the different proof marks mean, but they are all over it. There's some. And here's one. But we move back, and I should say the barrel is completely exposed up here, much like a Beretta, and that's because the Beretta in many ways was just a mechanical copy of the Walther, at least in the way the action locks up. We move rearward, there's an extractor right there, or an ejector, and then we have the safety, and of course let's check this thing and make sure it's fine. Yep, we're unloaded there. It is double action with a decocker, so let me zoom out here. If you have it on safe and it's decocked, the hammer just pulls back that far. Then if you do that, you'll have a double action pull, and then all the rest of the shots will be single action. And then to decock it, you can just do that. So the rear sights here, they are the exact same dimensions as the World War II ones, but this one has a white dot in the center that you line up, kind of like that with the front sight. And then probably the biggest difference between this and a real P38 is that the frame on this one is aluminum, and when we take it apart we'll look more at that. But on the World War II ones it was all steel. Down here these grips are different. They're just plastic, but they're different than the World War II ones, which were Bakelite and usually brown. There were a couple kind of late war that were like raw aluminum, but these are just brown plastic, and it stayed like that all through the P1 production. There's a lanyard loop and then a heel release, and you have an 8-round single stack mag of 9mm. So let's go on and show how to take this thing apart. So first, you of course take the magazine out, make sure that it's unloaded, which it is, and then we pull back just a little bit and flip down this takedown lever, and then once you do that, you kind of push on this thing, Well, let me try this again here. You might actually have to have it decocked like that. Yeah, there we go. So decock it, and then this just comes right out. Right there is an extractor. So whenever we put this back on, we'll tuck that out of the way to slide the frame back, or the slide back on, so don't forget that. And then once you're here, you can unlock the barrel from the slide by pressing in this little button here, and that will move the falling block out of the way, and then it just comes right off. So all in all, for a pre-war design, it's a pretty easy takedown there, and it's very similar to a Beretta. But let's take the magazine out of the way, we've already looked at that. Here is the barrel. It would look a lot like a Beretta if you have those. Right here is the locking surface. This works by whenever it unlocks, this is down, it goes back, and then whenever it's in battery, this pushes back in and locks the barrel using those little cutouts there into the slide so it doesn't move. But there's that. The slide is kind of just what you'd figure for the inside of a slide. Firing pin channel and all those different things. And then the frame here, I don't know how much this weighs, but it's just about nothing because it's all aluminum except, you know, like the little parts are still steel. Right here are the recoil springs. It's got dual recoil springs on either side. And then that's really just about it that you need to field strip it. But this thing is just super light. And one thing also that's interesting about these P1s is they had trouble originally going to an aluminum slide. Kind of got that in the light there so you can see the details. But whenever they originally went over to aluminum, they just copied the exact same dimensions as the P38s. And you know, when you go from steel to aluminum, you're going to lose strength, and that did cause some of the early P1s frames to crack. So they beefed up a little bit right here. You can see this is all raised, and then also this little, I guess it's kind of like a punch, just a thing that goes through all the way, is a reinforcing method that they use to keep the frame stronger. It is made out of steel, that piece, and in the early ones they didn't have them. I think they were retrofitted, so you will find some without this raised section, but they will have that piece going through. But this is made, what did I say it was, in 1980, so it's well beyond when they figured out the problem and figured out how to solve it. But let's put this back together, and then I'm going to pull out a Luger, and we'll see, you know, why they went to something like this right before a major war, and then why this stuck around so long compared to what they had before. Actually, before I put this together, I just wanted to tell you what to look out for when you're putting it back together. So this block, you have to push it up and actually lock it into the frame. So just push that up, then it'll slide back, and kind of keep your thumb on it as you press. Then when you get back here, this extractor needs to be pushed down, and you can just slide it right over, pull it back just a hair, flip that up, and you're good. And I just pinch myself on it, but you're good there. So let me put that down here and zoom out, and then we can get out the Luger right here. And if you know anything about the Luger and German small arms, you know that it's pretty complicated. So we just saw how that works. It's very similar to a Beretta. Well, the Beretta is very similar to it, I should say. But then you take a look at something like this, and this is what Germany used from 1908 until 1938. It was officially replaced, but it was still used up until about 42. So you can imagine in a factory this would be a lot more complicated to try to construct. It's got a toggle lock. I don't think anything after the Luger ever used a toggle lock, because it was kind of, I guess the word is obsolescent pretty fast. Like it still worked just fine at the time, but there were definitely better options out there, because you had the 1911 4 years after this was adopted, so not too long after this was already, you know, already surpassed by something else. So you compare that to the relative, at least, simplicity of the P38, and you know, it's got a slide, It's a lot easier to cock, of course, and being able to carry with one in the chamber and the hammer down was a lot more safe and convenient than with the Luger, where you could carry it one in the chamber, but I probably wouldn't want to. I don't know the doctrine at the time, but they probably carried one in the chamber. But you take a look at this, and even, 40 years after the war, you can still see that you just don't have to put as much machine time into it. There's just a complete difference in terms of not quality, but I guess artisanship, or like specialized knowledge to make this over this. But so that was replaced in '38, even though it stuck around for a while. And then this was the standard issue of the German military through World War II, and then all the way up to 2004 it remained. This is actually not mine. I used to have one of these, but mine was great to shoot. It's, even with the aluminum, it's still a pretty hefty gun, and you're only shooting 9mm out of it, so it's very low recoil. And then this grip is pretty, big and beefy, so you don't have to worry about anything with it. So it's a very, very pleasant thing. It probably feels a lot like a Beretta, honestly. And then some people say that it's more accurate because the barrel does not tilt, it just moves back. And let me try to explain here how it works, even though I'm sure you kind of got the gist of it now. From here until there, the barrel and the slide are locked into place. And then if you remember when we took it apart, that button we pressed on the bottom hits up against the back of the slide, and when it does that, it moves the two locking nuts out of the way. And when it does that, you can get from here to unlock the rest of the way. And then it comes back, and then forward, and it locks it back in place. So, it's not a tilting barrel. It's not as, I guess some would say, as good as it could be, but it's definitely a step up from whatever they were doing, back at the turn of the century. But we're gonna go do some shooting with this, and we'll see how it works, and maybe we'll even catch a malfunction and show that off. But it's been pretty reliable. And then another thing with this open top design, the shells just shoot straight up pretty much like the Luger actually. But you don't have to worry about getting brass in your face because it's got all of this area to shoot brass out of. It's not just, a hole on the side. But let's go take it out and shoot it, and then we'll kind of give our final thoughts on it. Okay, I'm actually back in here for just a second. I forgot to mention the box that it came in. People probably don't care about that, but it did come with it, so I'll show it off. I'm guessing that this was some kind of mail-in thing that you got, and we'll see who it's from when I open it up here, but there's all the markings on the outside. You can see all that is actually in German. I don't know what it's saying, but probably something. And then pistol, P1, all that kind of stuff, bunch of numbers. But I mean, it's just a cardboard box, Then opening it up, there is, company would have been Inner Ordnance that it was got from. It's just a kind of a little manual on it. Inner Ordnance card. So this was from North Carolina, and I'm guessing it was sometime in the 90s. And then their little test target saying that it does in fact work and everything. I don't know, I guess they use a different paper for the target. I didn't know you could do that, but there's no holes. But anyway, and then this was in it. I guess there was like a cleaning rod or something, but that's all you got back then. So now with that out of the way, we can actually go shoot this thing. Okay, so now we're gonna shoot it. I showed off the magazines, but they're just normal everyday magazines, and they've got cutout holes so you can count 8 of them in there. Put it in, and then we put it on safe, rack the slide, and we've got a chamber indicator there saying that it's ready to go. And we put it on fire, and the trigger pops forward, and we shoot. Okay, slide locks back, and then of course it's got a heel release, at the time, the idea was you would just keep all your spare magazines and reload them later, so they, that didn't stop them or anything. But we've got one in there, and then since we've got the safety off, it's still in semi-auto for the next shots, or in single action. Alright, slide locks back. Take that mag out, then you can safe and drop the slide and it's back on safe. Pop it back up and you're in double action.
Alright, now I'm going to try a few shots through the Walther P1. Locked open.
Alright, so that's going to do it for our Walther P1 video. We looked over it, we shot it, now we're back in here just getting one final look at it. It is a pretty great shooter, as you saw. We were able to hit pretty well what we were aiming at with it. Alright, that does it for our Walther P1 video. We looked over it, we shot it, and it was able to shoot pretty much all that we were aiming at. Leave anything down in the comments, your thoughts or stories about the P1 or the P38, anything you want to share. But that's going to do it for us, and we'll see you next time. Alright, so that's going to... No!